On this episode of Bootstrappers, we're going to talk about what aspects of a company make it grow or stagnate. Our guest today is Brian Hughes of BizDev Mastermind, and he's going to talk about what he's seen in the industry through his consulting service. That's on this episode of Bootstrappers.
This is the Bootstrapper Show for property management, powered by Anequim, a podcast where we have real conversations with industry experts that you can apply to your life and business.
Welcome to Bootstrappers, where we talk about topics that are important to real estate and property management entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Gwenn, and we're here at the Red Rock Casino in Las Vegas. And we're talking today about which property management companies flourish and which ones stagnate and why. Our guest today is Brian Hughes of BizDev. Is that how I say it right?
BizDev Mastermind.
BizDev
Yep.
Mastermind.
Exactly.
He's a consultant that helps property management companies with their growth goals and helps them get out of a stagnating situation if they find themselves in one. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Yes, thanks for having me, Gwen. Excited to talk with you and get into some of these topics and share some good information, hopefully.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So you work with many different companies in your role.
Yes.
And so what are some of the leadership differences that you've observed between some of the companies that are really killing it
Yep.
and moving the ball forward and those that are just kind of like stagnating and not really?
Yeah, well, you hit on a good point, leadership, and that's something that I think a lot of times companies maybe don't think about as much when it comes to growth. You know, they're focused on lead generation, focused maybe on marketing or website or some of those nuts and bolts type things. But if you don't have a solid, you don't have solid leadership in place to get you started, all of that other stuff, is way less effective and way less important. So starting with leadership is great starting point. Some of the things that we see out there is really, I can kind of boil it down to one word, and that's involvement. How involved are your leaders? Are they, I don't mean making the phone calls with you day to day, but are you meeting with your team leaders weekly? Do you have quarterly meetings? Do you have planning sessions? Do you have goals in place? And just that involvement alone can pay dividends, and can really push the ball forward. So, some of the best companies, some of the fastest growing companies I've seen, they really know their metrics and they share them with their team. They hold them accountable and they're consistent in doing all of that. So those are some of the things we see.
So what I'm hearing you say is that real leadership that's going to help your business grow to that next level is that the leader has to show some kind of vision for the organization and know what it stands for, where it's going, what its goals are, and then be able to demonstrate that or talk about that in terms of output, which is the KPIs, so that the team has a direction to follow and knows what their whole mission is when they get up in the morning. Is that kind of what you're thinking about with leadership? Yeah,
absolutely. Vision is really important, and taking that vision and breaking it down into attainable goals, and then sharing those goals with their team, and then getting them excited about those goals. It's one thing to come into an office and say, okay, new goals, guys, here's what we're going to do. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. But if the team's not bought in, if you're not getting them bought in, you might be missing something in that area. So
getting the team involved as well. So not only setting that vision, but making sure you have the right people on the bus.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Making sure you have, the right person in the right seat is also a under that umbrella of leadership. And also knowing when it's time to maybe make a change.
So is that part of your consulting? Like, do you go into companies and you kind of observe how things operate? And then can you tell right away? Maybe you can see things that the owner can't see, like this person is toxic. I know this is your best friend from high school, but maybe you guys all shouldn't be doing business together. Are those kind of the things that you see often?
Yeah, absolutely. That's not our main goal when we're going. We're working with the companies on the business development side and working with their business development managers, but inevitably things like that come up. Whether it's, hey, I'd like to record this video, but I can't nail down our maintenance manager to get them to help me out. Or, I'd like to do this, but I'm having trouble, getting support here or there. That is certainly something we come across. And, you start talking about business development, but then you realize it's connected to all these other things.
Exactly. Right. That's why they come to you. They're like, Brian, I want to grow. I want to be amazing. And then you realize, well, some of these fundamentals aren't met. I'm going to have I can get you a a business development manager. I can set you on this plan, but it's not going to get you anywhere if you don't have these fundamentals done. Is that kind of where you kind of come in?
Absolutely, yeah. So the way we kind of help in that particular area is that we're giving our owners and brokers a sheet of KPIs, and we're kind of training them how to manage their salespeople. We're kind of really hands-on during our consulting program, about 4.5 months, but we want to leave our clients with the tools and the knowledge to continue that on afterwards.
But they have to execute that. And
that is true.
So you're kind of babysitting, helping them, but then there's a time where you're going to maybe not be so hands-on, and they've got to take that baton and run with it. So that's kind of where that leadership comes in. Absolutely.
And the companies and the clients that we've worked with that have seen, massive growth and have really, taken what we've trained on and run with it, they are the ones that are tracking everything. They know their numbers, they know their KPIs, they're communicating with the team, and everything is above board and executed consistently.
So that discipline is a big part of that leadership as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly is. And, discipline is, in my opinion, about consistency also, and that's kind of wrapped in with it. And if you put it in your calendar and you say I'm going to do it and you follow through on it, you're half the way there.
That's so true. Okay, so we talked about leadership impacting whether companies grow or stagnate.
Sure.
The next thing is keeping your existing clients happy. So,
Absolutely.
It's very expensive to go out and get new business, and it can be done. You can grow your way out of problems, but if you can't keep that client happy, then that's an issue. So tell me about some issues that people have with keeping the clients happy, the problems that you've witnessed.
Sure. Some of the best things, it kind of comes back to tracking. Some of the things that you can look at and use as a litmus test to know are your reviews, your NPS scores, your client questionnaires, things like that. So getting those numbers down and knowing where you're at today and where you want to be is really important.
Do a lot of people come to you and they don't have any system like that set up, or do most companies have it?
Yeah, I would say, the majority don't. A lot of people are kind of saying, I know I want to grow, but I'm not exactly sure what I need to do to get there. And, I think that's kind of where we're at.
I want to just get back to that NPS score. So that is something that is really hard to track because not everybody's going to fill that out. But I think it's still, nonetheless, even if you can't get everybody to grade you in a numerical way, it's a great KPI for those people who are in charge of keeping clients happy.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're running the business without being in the weeds. You need to know if those middle managers are actually doing what they're telling you they're doing.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the times you can find that out way late, and then you're in kind of a disaster recovery mode because you realize so much was done without you knowing. And so that can be kind of a leading indicator of an issue with management.
Sure. Yeah, and you started with a point that I hear, hey, we're not going to get everyone to fill out the NPS scores. So in some cases, folks will throw up their hands and say, well, maybe it's not worth it. I'm not going to do it. But, my opinion, get the scores you can. Start with the baseline. Not everyone's going to respond to your survey and tell you how likely they'd be to recommend, but a portion will, and a portion will continue to respond to those surveys, and you have a baseline and you can kind of build from there.
And you can do it. You don't have to rely on somebody filling out a form. As the owner of the business, you can call people and say, hey,
Absolutely.
How was your experience? And you can ask them the NPS score questions and then log it yourself so you can get a good feedback.
That's exactly what we had done at Rentworks there, and we'd have a virtual assistant go through and call and have that conversation. And we actually took it one step further. We asked the NPS question, how likely would you be to recommend us to a friend or family member, 1 through 10? If they gave us a 9 or a 10, we'd say, okay, great, thanks for the feedback. We also do get a ton of our business on referrals and reviews. Would you be willing to leave us a review, and we'll give you a $20 gift card, or we'll give you a little bit off your management fee, whatever it may be. And that worked really well. We got a ton of reviews.
And I'm a huge believer in asking for those positive reviews because people don't naturally do that. They naturally go on if they're angry or upset.
Absolutely.
And so if you want your Google review, for example, to be a true reflection of your actual quality, it is a required basically to ask for the positive reviews.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it goes back to that old adage: if you upset someone, they're going to tell 10 people. If you make them really happy, they might tell one or no one.
Right.
So yeah, you have to really push for those positive reviews and not be afraid to ask.
Well, that's a great segue to marketing. So
Sure.
marketing's the next thing that is really going to make or break your business. And if you intend on growing, I mean, you've seen a lot of property management websites.
Sure.
Oh, can you just give us the nuts and bolts about what you
Yeah.
see that are like the big, like red flags, or like, oh my God, please don't do this on your website. It's so bad and it doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Well, there's levels to that. There are the sites that you look at and you're like, this was probably made in 1995, and it's it shows. You can tell right away by looking at it. That's obviously a problem. But some of the other things that we see with companies that are a little bit more established and do have a website recently built and all of that, they answer a lot of the same questions, and they're very similar. If you look at a property management website in Denver compared to one in Chattanooga, a lot of cases there's going to be a lot of the same elements and even a lot of the same phrasing. We take the stress out of owning a rental property. We handle the maintenance, collect the rent, and a list of things that we do as property managers. And I think if you look around at the different websites, you start to realize that this is not a differentiator at all in some cases. And I think that's where a lot of folks miss the mark. They use their website as more of a check the box thing. It looks nice. It has the information on there. Got a couple of videos maybe if you're doing them okay. And, they kind of think of it like that, as opposed to using your website as a business card or a selling tool and something to draw folks in and maybe answer some of their questions and do some of the selling for you. As opposed to just being kind of a landing page, which some miss the mark by doing.
So when you meet with clients, do you talk about what truly differentiates you from the market? What are some ways that you've seen clients really stand out in a crowded field?
Yeah, sure. So that is something that we do with each client. We go through and list out or uncover their points of difference, what separates them from their competition. And really, to do that effectively, we have to start a step further back, which is something we also do with our clients, is shopping their market. So we want to talk to their competitors. We want to understand what their competitors are selling on, what they're doing really well, what maybe they're missing the mark on. And then we look at our client's company and say, let's be honest with ourselves. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the areas of opportunity? And then kind of looking at all of that, we can then say, okay, now we know what XYZ company does, but here's what you do, and here's why you do it different, and here's why it's better. And one of the kind of next step beyond that, we even identify, what does it look like when a self-managing landlord is taking tenant calls? What does it look like when a realtor is taking tenant calls? And what does it look like when our competitors are taking tenant calls? And what's the experience with all of that?
Okay. So really digging into the experience of the people you're interacting with, as well as calling and just seeing what the differentiating. So what I'm hearing, just to kind of wrap it up where we've gone so far.
Sure.
So let's say your property management company, you're looking at your revenue, you're completely stagnant. You're not making any progress. As soon as you get new clients, you're losing clients. And so this is where you're going to take some time to soul search about your true leadership abilities, the way that you show up for your team, the way that you create a discipline or an undisciplined environment for them.
Sure.
And then you're going to take a deep dive into what really differentiates you from the competition. You're going to look at everybody's website. You're going to maybe shop the industry, and really look at, also maybe listen to some calls and really dig into what the client experience is, either on the tenant side or the owner side.
Sure.
So that you have a good idea of where you fall in your industry. Ooh. And then you have to do the hard work of admitting that there are areas that you could improve. And you already know that because you're not making more revenue. So the writing's on the wall. It's just admitting where the changes need to happen.
Sure.
And then that might be a good area where you also get some help if you need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing is identifying, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, what makes us, the best choice for property management for a specific client. And, once you've identified all of that, like you said, the next step is doing the hard work and putting in the effort to make the changes. But I think, sometimes where folks miss the mark is that they see a new strategy or a new opportunity and they think, okay, that's my ticket to growth.
Oh, the shiny object syndrome?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. So yeah,
because you get bored also, and you're like, oh, this will be my unicorn and puppies, result.
No, it's very simple. There's a proven formula that others have followed and that, businesses in general follow to grow. And, that's something that, like you said, you don't want to be distracted by the shiny objects. You want to kind of stick to your fundamentals and
know where your strengths are and build on those.
Sure.
Okay, so I've done my analysis. I know why things aren't working.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I fixed some of those fundamental issues. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in a place where the operation is good. I feel good about my marketing. I feel good about the leadership. I feel good about the team. Now it's time for me to grow.
Sure.
So I need to hire a business development manager, which is going to be a scary hire for me. Probably as a business owner, I've done all of that myself. Mm-hmm. So tell us about what that process looks like.
Yeah. So the hiring process, when we work with our clients, we kind of take it over hands-on or leave them hands-off. So we are, putting out the listing, we're interviewing candidates, we're taking them through, our hiring process. But things have changed over the past couple of years with COVID and,
mm-hmm.
the job
market is so hard.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is tough. We'll get a business development manager placed at a company and they'll call us a week before they're supposed to start and say, hey, can you offer me $20,000 more in salary because I got that at XYZ company? Hey, first day is it's their start day and, they're nowhere to be found because they found something for double the pay in some cases. So there are a lot of folks out there who are overpaying for salespeople. But what we found is if you are patient and you're willing to be patient, we can still find you the right person. We can still get the right person in the right seat. Where folks sometimes falter is that they think, I just got to get someone in here. I got to get someone in this seat to start taking these calls and get this off my plate. And that's where you really make some bad mistakes. So that's what we coach our clients not to do.
All right. So you support them in that process. Sure. Now, let's say I get somebody, how the heck do I manage the salesperson?
Yeah, absolutely. So we take over that portion of it during our consulting program. And we give the BDM KPIs to track. We're first, getting their feet wet their first month, but then we kind of put them out on their own to start generating new business. So one of the things that we really focus on is tracking activity, not results. Every company is starting at a different place, but we know one thing, that if you are doing the activities necessary to generate new business, it will come. It may take a little bit longer, it may happen quicker, but if you focus on activity and make sure that the activities that are necessary are happening, the results will come. So that's where
you focus on leading indicators. So the lagging indicator is going to be revenue growth, but the leading indicator is how many calls are you making? Are you doing this list? Are you sending these emails out? Do you have a drip campaign for people on our list? Have you divided up the list into different segments?
Yep.
Those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And so maybe an owner can kind of list those things out before they even start with a business development manager on what they want to have accomplished.
Sure.
And then set that expectation as they're interviewing people. Like, here's what you're going to need to do to be successful. Is this a good role for you? And this is the activity I'm looking for you to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we share with our BDMs sometimes during the hiring process, and certainly once they're getting onboarded. Here are the expectations. Here are the things that we want you to do. So it's real clear goals and expectations and KPIs and standards, and then we just hold them accountable to those goals. And
that's quickly what the role of a manager, managing that business development manager, is.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say someone's okay. Mm-hmm. Like, this is always the hard management decision. Like, they're fine, but they're not amazing.
Yep.
How do you know when someone has crossed the line into a toxic employee or unproductive employee if they're going through the motions or kind of doing the work?
Yeah. That's where you come back to activity, because the numbers don't lie. You've either made X number of calls or you haven't. You've either created videos or you haven't. You've either visited the offices or you haven't. And when you have those employees who on the results side are kind of marginal and you're wondering, is this going to work long term or not? You go back to the activity and you say, okay, well, what are they actually doing? The results are going to be up and down from time to time, just in general. But what are you doing? And if you look at their activity and you think there's room for improvement, set those standards and say, okay, your activity that you're doing right now is not getting the results we need. So we're going to increase certain activities, and you put that on them to either rise to the occasion or say, you know what, I just can't do it. And that's kind of where you let them make the decision for you.
Okay. So you can really, they kind of decide about their own employability based on the standards you have set. And if they self-fire, if you will,
Sure.
if they're not meeting the standards that you've set, if you've been direct and straightforward and also coached and trained, you've done all you can.
Yep. And that can be a really uncomfortable process. That can be, you're putting people on the spot. You're kind of, you're holding them accountable, and sometimes people don't like that, but that's something you need to know.
The people who don't like it the most are the people who aren't doing anything.
That's exactly right. Exactly. And that tells you everything you need to know right there.
It really does. When people are like, I can't believe you don't trust me. You're like,
yes,
well,
exactly.
That's always an indicator that there's a lot of things that haven't been done.
Sure. Absolutely.
And salespeople are so likable. It can be such a challenging decision to make, but at the end of the day, it's a business, not anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I keep bringing it back to it, but that's where your KPIs and your numbers really will help you and help you guide you to making the right decisions.
And that's where the leadership comes in again.
Absolutely. It all comes together.
It does. Yeah. Are there any other words of wisdom you would have for companies who find themselves in that stagnating position?
Yeah. Well, I would say, start doing your research. Look for the different resources that are out there to help you grow and push you in the right direction. I was just talking with a client, a current client, and he's saying, man, when I signed up with you, I thought we'd get, something out of it, but just what we've gotten out of it has just been over and above and beyond what I ever expected. And that's really the crux of it. You don't know what you're going to get out of something until you get into it in a lot of cases. You might have an idea, but when your eyes are open, they're open, so look for those resources and those, in some cases, companies that are out there to help.
So where can people find you, Brian?
Yeah, they can always shoot me an email, brian@bizdevmastermind.com. You can also visit our website, bizdevmastermind.com as well. Or if you're here at PMMCon, come stop by our booth.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the Bootstrappers Show. Bootstrappers is powered by Anequim. Anequim is the #1 virtual assistant provider in the property management industry. If you have any labor needs, go to anequim.net and set up a discovery call today. We can help you find all the most amazing virtual assistants who can do anything a domestic employee could do from behind a desk. And I guarantee that you'll enjoy the process and have great results. So that's a wrap.
This is the Bootstrappers Show for Property Management, powered by Anequim, a podcast where we have real conversations with industry experts that you can apply to your life and business.